Previously on Ancient Greece. The Athenian tyrant Pisistratus was a member of the cult of Dionysus, and he wanted to make this a government-sponsored cult. So he decided to explain to the people of Athens that they had to worship Dionysus, or the god would do very bad things to their special areas. So Dionysus started being worshipped. Then, in the 530s BC, Pisistratus made a festival for his fave. This festival was the city of Dionysia. The first recorded festival was 534, and the winner of it was Thespis, a priest of Dionysus, who actually acted out a myth. This was pretty groundbreaking, and he's credited as the creator of tragedy and acting. His status is disputed, but we won't get into that. But Dionysia was a hit, so Pisistratus had a special new theater built, and Greek theater proper could get off the ground. Hello. I will be your lovely host, McCoy. As you probably deduced, I'm going to be discussing ancient Greek theater, because that says it right there. What did you expect? You knew your girl was going to talk about ancient Greece. Come on, I've got a brand here. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about Athenian theater, because Athens was huge into theater. Anyways, let's get into some of the conventions of ancient theater, before coming back around to the history, and then closing with some examples of classical plays. Tragedies are probably the most famous type of play. You hear about them all the time. Tragedies had a very specific structure, written down by Aristotle. It starts with an inciting incident, has a complication, then a rising action culminating with a climax, and a reversal. Then the falling action, and then a resolution, which often is a character dying, usually the main character. Greek tragedies focus on usually good people, but they have a fatal flaw. Usually this flaw is hubris or excessive pride. It comes up a lot in ancient Greek stories. This flaw is their undoing and causes the tragedy of the play. This structure was put onto a triangle by this guy, Freytag, who was an ancient Greek, but he always gets mentioned, even though Aristotle actually came up with the structure. So, if I put a structure on, like, a square, can I get famous? I don't think so, but maybe. I gotta go put a thing on a square. Be right back. Alright, I'm back. Squares are a lot more difficult to deal with than I expected. Anyways, tragedies were usually only performed once during the Dionysian festival, so that's why there are so many that we don't have. Now, comedies. Aristotle basically said that comedies were about laughable people, and they show those people making mistakes, that instead of being tragic, are humorous. The type of comedy discussed here is called old comedy. It's commonly written by Aristophanes. These comedic plays usually satirize political developments and public figures while having innumerable crass jokes. We'll get to that later. Satyr play. Finally, the satyr play. The satyr plays were primarily performed during Dionysia. There would be 3 tragedies and then a satyr play. Satyrs were written by the tragedy writers, and they usually retold mythical events. However, they took elements like a happy ending from comedy. Their notable element was that the chorus was comprised of a bunch of guys just like satyrs. Satyrs are mythical creatures with a man's body and a goat's legs. Here is comedian John Mulaney dressed as one now. Satyr play continued. The satyrs are strongly connected to old religious worship of Dionysus. In some variations of the myth, the god is even raised among satyrs and nymphs in the mountains. So their involvement in this festival is natural. The satyrs and satyr plays had costumes that focused on their phallus. I'm not going to tell you what that is. If you know, you know. Or you can look it up. And they made a lot of not safe for work jokes. Masks. The actors in Greek theater wore masks. When they switched characters, they would switch masks. In ancient Greece, men played all the parts. This meant that masks could also indicate a character's gender if it was a female character. Always built on the side of a hill, the Greek stages have a very specific structure. We're discussing the theater building. A half circle where the audience sits faces the main stage. This is called the theatron, or sometimes the koilon. You can see it on the little diagram thingy. In the center of the theatron, there's actually an open circle, the orchestra. This is where the chorus is. Finally, there's the stage itself, the skene building. This building also contained the backstage parts, where they would get dressed and stuff. The actors stood on the proscenium, which is like the stage. To the side of the skene building are the parados, where actors and the audience entered from. Above this was the theologion, which is where gods were lowered from. This was part of the Deus Ex Machina trope idea thing. I don't know what to call it here. Where playwrights would just have a god show up at the end and solve all the problems. They would be lowered from a crane thing, thus god from the machine. You get it. History time! Between 492 and 446 BC, some stuff went down. Okay. The Persian Empire had tried to take over all of Greece. Read Herodotus' histories for more on that. It's fun. It's long though, so unless you have like a lot of time to kill, then yeah, maybe don't read it. But it's fun. Find a summary or something. Anyway, this is not important. The important things for us were that, one, Athens had been razed to the ground by the Persians. Destroyed. It was set on fire. It was, yeah, pretty bad time there. But the Athenians had proved instrumental in saving Greece from the Persians. So, when they rebuilt their city, they decided to formalize the theater and build fancy new theaters and generally celebrate themselves through theater, and the Dionysus specifically. This period of 449 to 431 BC is the golden age of Athens and of Greek theater. During this time, many important plays were written. Most of the plays we have from around this time are tragedies, usually written by one of these three guys: Euripides, Sophocles, and Aeschylus. We're going to go over a few of their plays. First up, Aeschylus' Prometheus Bound. Prometheus Bound is a play telling the story of the Greek titan Prometheus. It tells about how he was shackled to a mountain by Zeus' servants Kratos. No, not that one. No, let's get him out of here. And Ba, or Might and Violence. Not to be confused with Pain and Panic from Hercules, the film, or Phobos and Deimos from, Ares' children. They do this because Prometheus gave fire to mortals, and then Prometheus tricks Zeus out of an offering. Prometheus' fate is to have an eagle chew on his liver for all eternity. The liver grows back every night, and the eagle comes in the day. Prometheus Bound is widely believed to have been part of a trilogy, but the other parts are lost. We have some fragments and stuff. It likely would have been followed by Prometheus Unbound. This is the second part of the trilogy, by the way. And then there's even evidence of the third, Prometheus Firebringer. We don't actually know what's in these plays. I've read speculation that they would even tell the story of Zeus' defeat at the hands of his son. Again, not that one. I don't know who keeps putting these in the presentation. It wasn't me. I don't want this guy anywhere near my Greek presentation. Anyway, Oresteia. We do have one complete tragic trilogy, the Oresteia, again by Aeschylus, which starts with absolute girl boss Clytemnestra murdering her husband Agamemnon because Agamemnon killed their daughter like 10 years ago. He totally deserved it. That guy sucks. The next part is about Clytemnestra and Agamemnon's son Orestes killing his mom for the Agamemnon murder, mostly because Apollo told him to. It's not Orestes' fault, guys. He's cool. Agamemnon still sucks, though. I just want to be clear that Agamemnon is the worst, and I don't feel so bad that he died. And then the Furies legally try Orestes, but Athena exonerates him through way of Apollo's crack legal defense. Jackson! He puts forth some not very good arguments, but it works. According to the play, this is how the Athenian legal system was created, which is interesting. More history. In 431 BC, the Peloponnesian War, a war between Sparta and Athens, began. This war went on for a while and is the period that a lot of plays from the comedy writer Aristophanes come from. A lot of his comedies still survive. They criticize Athenian society as well as having many dirty jokes, as I said earlier. One of his most famous plays is... Oh, come on, you knew it was coming. Anyways, The Frogs is a play that focuses on the god Dionysus questing down to the underworld with his servant Xanthias to get the playwright Euripides. This play shows off everything relevant in a Greek comedy. For example, the entire play begins with just a bunch of piss jokes. Xanthias really has to pee, you see, and he wants to joke about it, but Dionysus is adamant that he shouldn't do so, mostly because Dionysus doesn't like piss jokes. I legitimately think the scene is really interesting, although it is a vehicle to deliver, piss jokes to the audience. It serves as a criticism of those kind of jokes, specifically calling out writers who engage in them. I remember Dionysus remarks that, like, if he goes to see those jokes in a play, he ages at least a year. The whole work is filled with subversive moments like that. For example, the whole play begins with the characters addressing the audience, and then later on they go to Hades and are looking around for the liars and thieves that Hercules described in an earlier scene, and they look at the audience and they're like, oh, there they are. These early fourth wall breaks are very interesting to me. In addition to lowbrow comedy, Aristophanes also loved referencing current political figures. For example, in the big rap battle play quoting thing, it's weird, between Euripides and Aeschylus at the end of The Frogs, Dionysus asks them what they think about the exile return of Athenian general Alcibiades. Who is Alcibiades? And I love answering this question because Alcibiades is amazing. Alcibiades is a historical figure famous for his sex appeal. This guy is ridiculous. He was so hot that he was able to get people to listen to him and get himself out of trouble.
Cause I'm handsome, I'm so good looking, I'm easy on the eyes. Don't you know that I'm handsome? I got chiseled features, try not to look surprised. Maybe you see that I'm handsome, I'm a real Adonis, I'm the best you ever saw.
He's insane. Alcibiades was a divisive figure, though, for a few reasons. One, he talked the Athenian government into letting him have a military expedition to Sicily, which didn't work. Two, he was suspected of defacing the Herms. The Herms were road markers sacred to Hermes. They all had these penises on them. Apparently, the night before the Sicily expedition, mind you, someone had smashed all of the peni off the statues, and people thought Alcibiades did it. Then, after the Sicily thing, he fled to Sparta. Alcibiades jumped ship, and he switched sides, and he started working for the Spartan king. This fell apart when Alcibiades slept with the king's wife. Alcibiades, come on. In 407 BC, Alcibiades returned and made peace with Athena. He was again placed in a high office, though some were skeptic about his reappearance. Alcibiades in The Frogs. Alcibiades was a hot-button figure for these reasons, and this is why Aristophanes chose to reference him. The Frogs was performed only 2 years after Alcibiades returned, after all. There's even interpretation that the entire work is designed to reference Alcibiades from certain excerpts quoted over the course of the play, as well as some of Alcibiades' political rivals being blasted in the text. That's all about The Frogs, by the way. The end of the history of Greek theater. Unfortunately for Athens, they lost the Peloponnesian War. They were kind of a nasty empire at that time, so it's not too bad for the rest of the world. Theater continued into the Hellenistic period, though, the period after Alexander the Great took over Asia, most of Asia and Europe and some of Africa. He took over a lot, but theater kind of petered out from here. The new comedy created during the Hellenistic period by this guy Menander, mostly, did inspire Roman theater, which is something else entirely and could be a different presentation that I didn't make. That's all, everyone. Everything I have today on Greek theater. I hope your understanding of this topic has been broadened, and I hope you enjoyed listening. You can see my sources under there. That's all. Bye.